And hello, welcome to round 2 of the Paragon Games Tournament Series Ruby Open. We have in the booth with us Jacob Golding and myself, Virginia Wong.
Hi everyone. So we're going to be watching Sylvius play Laura today. These are both well-known players within the Canberra community. Laura's also been judging for a couple of years now. She can often see her judging events around Canberra. I believe she judged the second Paragon Open for us. I think she's recently returned from a trip to Kuala Lumpur, judging the GP over there. So yeah, she's well known in the community.
Yep, and she also runs our Lady Planeswalkers group in Canberra. So yeah, definitely very involved in the Magic community. She's on red-green Pummeler today.
Yep.
Which is kind of like the proxy infect deck of Standard.
yeah. It's trying to kill you quick.
Yeah.
In ways that are a little bit unfair.
And Sylvius is a black-red madness. I think my personal kind of favourite in this current meta, but definitely one that's a bit tricky to play. Kind of. If people familiar with Modern would think it looks kind of like Dredge, and they definitely set up their graveyard a lot like Dredge.
Yep.
But yeah, it definitely has. It's kind of. It's very. I feel like it's very draw dependent. Sometimes they're filtering and they just don't quite get there. So it's been an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I think looking through this list, it's trying to fill its graveyard in a subtly different way to Dredge lists. Dredge lists normally you'll get something in the graveyard and then be able to dredge that with the ability, so draw that card instead of the card you were going to draw for the turn, and then put the top 6 or 5 or however many cards into your graveyard. The Black-Red Madness deck looks to be mainly drawing cards and then discarding them, which is slightly different. You'll often find slightly less powerful effects or cards that put slightly less cards in the graveyard due to this way. So we've got cards like Cathartic Reunion and Insolent Neonate along those lines of drawing and then discarding.
Yeah. And unfortunately Laura is down she's nulling down to 5.
Yeah.
And it's a symptom of the deck as well. You do want a very specific mixture of pump spells and creatures.
Yeah. It is a very the style of deck where you have 2 halves to the deck,
definitely.
really. And we see other similar types of decks like this, mainly in Modern, where, as you mentioned, Infect, and also a deck like Ogles, where you've got a bunch of creatures that often have some interesting effects or unique abilities, and then cards to augment those creatures and turn what they're doing into something truly busted. Yeah,
and on the screen we've got Electrostatic Pummeler. That is the kind of the key card, one of the key cards in that deck, one of the payoff cards definitely. For 3 energy, you can basically double the amount of damage exponentially with that one card.
Yeah, so what Laura is going to be looking to do is generate a bunch of energy, get up to the point where she'll be able to activate Pummeler 2 or 3 times in turn, and then she'll cast a bunch of pump spells on it before doubling the power and toughness. This lets it get up to some quite large numbers quite quickly.
Yeah, and to protect her Pummeler, she has another key card, Blossoming Defense, which gives a creature hexproof and also pumps, which is basically what the deck wants to do.
Yeah, it's everything the deck wants to do. Yeah. And this card we'll be talking a lot about, in fact, in Modern, because of the parallels with the deck. But this indeed has even made its way into a lot of
it has, hasn't it?
Yeah. We see that Laura playing the objectively correct energy marker of a Pokemon Electric Energy. Yeah, we've actually got a Pokemon pre-release going on next door here at the Games Capital today. Yeah, good starts really from both players. Laura's got a Long Tusk Cub out, which is going to allow her to start generating some energy. And we've got Sylvius with a Scrap Heap Scrounger. This card's decent. It's proven to be quite good. It's a 2-mana 3/2 artifact. It can't block. but you can pay 1 and a black, and I believe discard 2 cards. Or is it exile a creature from the
exile
graveyard?
from the graveyard.
Exile from the graveyard, yeah. There's a couple of effects that are quite similar. But this one, you exile a creature from the graveyard and you can return it to the battlefield.
Yeah. And Sylvius has actually had a fantastic side in the graveyard as well. He's definitely got the 2 payoff cards, both Prize Amalgam and Haunted Dead in his graveyard from the Cathartic Reunion, which is amazeballs as a black-red discard madness start.
Yeah, so Sylvius in the next couple of turns will be looking to activate that Haunted Dead, get it back from the graveyard, and also return his prized amalgam. Yeah.
And here comes the energy. As you can see, Laura is right up to 6, which, you know, that's definitely the place you want to go. Almost every card in Laura's deck does generate some form of energy. Yeah,
Laura's got a good, solid, limited board state going on at the moment, I'd say. Starting with Attune with Aether, and then we've got, these cards that are not too impressive by themselves, but the effect added by the energy generation really is something that is going to be very powerful for her in the future. She's already able to activate Pummeler twice, not including the activation that Pummeler gives itself. So Sylvius, quite happy to trade off. His Scrap Heap Scrounger is not going to be doing any blocking, and really he just wants to start clearing Laura's board and keep attacking.
Yeah, and that's definitely what you want to do against Red-Green Pummeler. You just want to kill the creatures as quick and as effective as you can, because they are, they're useless without, the pump spells are useless without the creatures on the board.
Yeah, and so here we see an activation from Sylvius, getting the Haunted Dead back, and he's pointed out his prized amalgam trigger, which is going to happen. I believe this is in Laura's beginning of combat.
And that's the strength of Sylvius' deck. It's just so... what's the word? Iterative.
Yeah. So here we see interesting play. Sylvius was able to get his spirit, use that to crew his smuggler's copter in an effort to block Laura's Longtusk Cub, but she had the Harness Lightning, which was able to bring down that smuggler's copter. And she's actually started using a bit of her energy to pump up the Longtusk Cub. That tells us that she probably doesn't have an electrostatic pummeler in hand. So she's trying to use the energy, get the most of that, and keep getting in some damage. Both of these decks at the moment really trying to just keep on getting in attacks. Sylvius really wants to keep getting some damage in, and Laura wants to keep that energy flowing. And she's after keeping a relatively land-light hand, she's flooding out a little bit here.
Yeah. So from Laura's side, you definitely want to see like another kind of payoff card there. So either a Pummeler or even the Hydra.
Yep. Bristling Hydra is a very good card in this deck.
And speaking of, she just plays the Pummeler.
Alright, there we go. So
9 energy.
And we see that she did not put any more energy into her Longtusk Cub. And that's really because she wants to keep it around. It's much more valuable when it gives a Pummeler +10/+10 than giving a Longtusk Cub a +1/+1.
Yeah, and there are spells in that deck that gives it trample as well.
Yep.
So against Sylvius's relatively smaller creatures, that is, it's a huge bonus when you have a 20/20 trampling dude.
So Uncaged Fury really is going to be the card that Laura is looking to break through this board stall, but she's going to have to wait a little bit longer before that's going to happen. Sylvius has got an unlicensed Disintegration.
Yeah. So it looks like she didn't have the Blossoming Defense to protect the Pummeler, which also makes me think that she
and
is
she's going to pack it up. I think that's lethal. Yeah, I think her remaining card in hand was a Built to Smash. So I think she did have lethal next turn if she was able to get that Pummeler to connect, but Sylvius had kept the attacks coming just a little bit too much for her to recover from her double mulligan at the beginning of the game.
Yeah. That double mulligan was pretty brutal, particularly for a deck that really can't get out of mulligans. There's no draw spells. You know, it is kind of your hand is what it is, and you have to play to that.
And that is really a similar theme throughout a lot of these decks that come in two halves that we were talking about. So think back to, in fact, in Modern, there really is no draw spells. You just have to have the cards in your hand and be able to do it. And similar with Boggles, although Boggles does sometimes get Core Spirit Dancer, that is generally not the way that you want to be starting the game.
Yeah. So looking at sideboards at the moment, what do you think Laura would bring in on her with her side?
Laura's got a Lanthu Hellion, an Appetite for the Unnatural, Clip Wings, Commencement of the Festivities, Galvanic Bombardment, Natural State, Chandra, and Nissa. I think here she is really looking to just keep getting through the board. So I don't think she'll be bringing in Clip Wings. That's normally for Avacyn, really. It's a very powerful tool of getting rid of Avacyn, but Sylvius isn't presenting any threat quite as resilient as that, so I think she'll leave that. I think that Laura really will be pretty happy with her main deck. It's kind of pretty well suited, I think, to fighting through what Sylvius is doing. She might look to maybe a Lanthu Hellion or something as just being a little bit bigger than anything else that Sylvius can put up on the board that we've seen so far. Lanthu Hellion, a 3-mana 4/4 with haste that you need to pay 2 energy at the end of your turn to keep it around.
Yeah.
And that's certainly not something that Laura needs to worry about. He generates plenty of energy, but yeah, I think in general, going for the combo kill, so to speak, might be a bit more of a secondary plan for Laura at the moment, given that Sylvius has quite a lot of removal in his deck with Fiery Temper, Lightning Axe, and Licensed Disintegration. And he'll probably be bringing in more out of the board with 2 more Lightning Axe and Collective Brutalities. But yeah, so I think Laura here, you see her sideboard, she'll probably be bringing in some extra, maybe some Lanthu Hellions, just trying to be a little bit less reliant on the combo plan. And I think Sylvius will be bringing in quite a bit more removal.
Who do you think is favoured post-board, Jacob?
I think that really the whole matchup is slightly favoured towards Sylvius. I think that his clock is fast enough and his removal is good enough that in most games he's going to be able to match up his cards quite favourably against Laura. And because a lot of other decks, control decks, can still find it quite hard to play against Pummeler just because the basic beatdown aggro plan is so powerful. Even if you don't have Pummeler and aren't doing absurd things like that. But Sylvius here, he's got a fast enough clock himself, and his creatures are big enough to deal with most of the things that Laura's putting out, that I think he should be fine.
Yeah. I think it just does depend on kind of Sylvius's hand. So the last game, he did have a bit of a god hand in that Cathartic did discard the 2 key cards that you
Looks
need.
like Laura's stuck with another 1 Mountain and 2 Attuned with Ether, which is not what you want to be seeing here. So she's going to be going to 6.
That's bad luck for Laura. You really just want to get the aggression on. I think if you're on Laura's side.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, these type of decks are prone to a high percentage of mulligans.
Yeah. The deck doesn't play many lands. So we've only got 20 lands, actually, and 4 of the Attune with Ether. Yeah. The deck really does go quite low to the ground in terms of it's packed with threats and a bit of removal as well.
Yeah. It does. I do like its matchup against some of the other, I guess you call more tier 1 decks. Against Black-Green Delirium, I think it is heavily favoured. It just tramples all over Ishkana and all the spiders.
Yeah.
Looks like no land, I think, in that hand.
Yeah. Well, Laura, this isn't the way you want it to go.
No.
Yeah, I think you are right though that a lot of the kind of top tier decks at the moment in Standard don't really have ways of effectively dealing with this. So as I said, they might have the removal, but then the beatdown plan kills them. They might have enough creatures to block, but then the combo kill gets them. The only kind of deck that I can think that might be able to do a good job is the blue-white spirits deck that has a bunch of spell quillers and things like that to slow it down. But yeah, you're certainly right. The slower kind of go big delirium decks, which are trying to really just spin their wheels until a turn 5-ish Kanar or big Emrakul turn. They're quite weak to most of the strategies that the red-green Pummeler deck can present. Games.
And even the vehicles decks, because the bodies are so small, you're playing at 3/1s, 1/2s. The trample just really is quite backbreaking for those decks to deal with. So as a meta call, like there are quite a few Black-Green Deliriums floating around, so it's not a bad deck for that. So hopefully she keeps on 5,
Yeah, I think Laura has scried an electrostatic Pummeler to the top, so she's certainly not out of this yet. And this is exactly the start that she wants to have, except unfortunately she's going to have to shuffle that Pummeler away.
Yeah. The Tune of the Ether.
Yeah, so a lot of the players in Canberra today were lining up for a big weekend of Magic. We've got this open here today, and then there's a standard PBDQ tomorrow as well at the same shop here at the Games Capital in Canberra. So people trying out decks, trying to figure out what the meta's going to be.
And the meta right now is quite erratic. There's a lot of shenanigans in Standard right now. It's definitely, if the flavor was to be an inventor and you can play shenanigans, I think it's definitely achieved that.
Yeah.
But it's made metaing quite. I find it's quite tricky to know exactly what deck to play.
Yeah. So you see here another one of the premier beatdown cards in Laura's deck of the kind of the backup plan with Voltaic Brawler. This attacks as a 4/3 Trampler for
Which
2 turns.
Which is huge!
And basically, in Laura's deck, it will continue attacking as a 4/3 Trampler for the entirety of the game if she wants it to. But yeah, no, Kaladesh has had a very big effect on the Standard metagame, really changing up every single one of the decks, I think. And so Smuggler's Copter has been a big part of that in terms of how it affects a lot of the matchups between decks.
So block here by Copter. So these guys will trade, one trample over.
Yep.
I have found that this deck, Laura's deck, is quite weak in Spy, so she'll be pretty happy to get that Copter off the table.
Yeah, well, I think most decks are happy to get a Copter off the table, really. It's just such a powerful card, and Sylvius' deck really is built to kind of maximize every single part of Copter's abilities. So with things like you've got Crypt Breaker and the Neonate already on the table, those are both things that you are very, very happy to be crowing with a Copter, especially in the early game before the Crypt Breaker starts generating absurd amounts of value. And the looting ability on Copter is just so powerful in this deck. especially with all of the madness cards and all of the things that you want in the graveyard already.
So Neonate does its job of chomping the cub.
Yep. And,
Limited All-Star.
Yep. So Sylvius is going to... Oh, he's just going to let that die, is he? It's interesting. I thought he would have wanted to discard, but he's must be happy with the cards in his hand, at least, or not have any things that he wants to really do with it. Here we go. I think he's more looking towards using the ability on the Haunted Dead there this turn to get that back.
So therein starts the dredge engine.
Yep. Yeah, we're getting that going. Combination of Haunted Dead and Prized Amalgam, something that I'm sure we'll be seeing in Standard, basically until they both rotate out.
Yeah.
Yeah, Prized Amalgam's done a lot since it was printed.
It has, hasn't it?
It took a couple of months, really, for it to start being played, but since then it's started showing up in modern tournaments.
Yeah.
Around our head judge here today, Lachlan Saunders, has played it in some of the modern events that Paragon has had on, and he's done quite well with it. He also won a PPTQ quite recently with it, and made the top 4 of the World Magic Cup qualifier the next weekend in Sydney. So it's certainly something that is around in the Canberra metagame, and people have started to realise just how powerful this thing is. It's, Narcomoop is a good card.
Yep.
It comes into play as a 1/1 flyer if it's milled, but Prized Amalgam, you've got to work a little bit more for it, but once you do, the 3/3 body can really make a difference.
So this board states something that Laura doesn't want to see. She doesn't want to see more little bodies gunking up at the ground.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard for her to keep the flow of energy going with that long toss card.
Yeah. And I think there's a lightning axe in Sylvius's hand.
Yeah.
For the cub, but I think Laura has a blossoming defense.
Yep, so we see Sylvius discard the Cathartic Reunion there, which is useless now that he's only got 2 cards in hand. And he's going to do that, and Laura's going to save her cub with the blossoming defense.
Yeah.
And that's going to prevent Sylvius from attacking in with any of these creatures. It's a good pickup there for Laura, though. I think that's an Uncaged Fury, which is one of the ways that her deck can punch through a board like this.
Yeah. And the deck normally does punch through in a turn. It's normally like, do nothing, bam, you're dead.
Yeah. And Uncaged Fury really kind of the Team of Battle Rage of this deck.
Yeah.
Talk about Team of Battle Rage being a card from Fairy Forged that really made Moderator Tarka decks a very strong thing in combination with Become Immense.
Yeah.
This card is played to this day in Death Shadow Zoo in Modern, and also in Pauper quite a lot. In any deck that features a Kiln Fiend, you play a bunch of instants and sorceries, and then you give your Kiln Fiend or the Nivix Cyclops double strike.
Oh wow! Is there any format you don't play, Jacob?
Not really. I do enjoy playing a lot of constructed formats. Just in general, they're great fun. And whenever you get bored of one, you just switch over to the different one. Yeah. Pauper is great fun if anybody is listening at home and hasn't played it. It's a very good way of getting into Magic Online. There's lots of tournaments and stuff. At the moment, the format's in a bit of a bad place because of the menace that is Paragon Drake, ruining everything for everybody. But I think the community expects that to be banned quite quickly. So, Pauper's great fun. And the power level of commons is very surprising.
I never got Pauper.
So, yeah, I think it's a bit of a favourable exchange really for Laura. She's been slowly working through Sylvius's board here, and he's gonna keep
do his thing.
bringing some things back and
Yeah.
trigger 2 prized amalgams though, so the board is suddenly back to almost where it was. He's going to stop Laura from getting some energy there, but we've got a Verdurous Gearhulk coming down for Laura. She's going to split the counters on that and make both of her creatures 6/6s. Verdurous Gearhulk kind of talked about before the release of Kaladesh as the best of the Gearhulks. It really does have a very powerful effect on the game, but not enough, unfortunately, for Laura, as Sylvius attacks in with all of his creatures and all of his tokens and the board that he filled up in one turn.
Yeah, so it's been unfortunate for Laura, the mulligans to 5.
Yeah.
But well played by Sylvius.
Yeah.
Piloted the deck very well.
Yeah, although those life totals look like it was a clear victory for Sylvius, I think that had Laura had maybe 1 or 2 extra turns of wiggle room at any point in time, her deck would have really been able to get there with her combo finishes.
Yeah.
And it's really, Sylvius brought in some Lightning Axe and Collective Brutality, and the card he's able to keep up the offense and fill his board after Laura has done some work bashing through it. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's all really the deck needs. It just needs that, that one turn to go off, really.
Yeah.
Before you're taking 40 damage.
Yeah. Yeah. And well played by both players. Wish them luck in the rest of the rounds to come.
Yeah, and that does it for us for round 2. We'll join you again for round 3. I'm Virginia.
I'm Jacob.
And see you guys later.